Over the weekend, both Baylor basketball teams showed us they are missing one big thing heading into the postseason, and it's something they both had last week. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday to you. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by Nissan. I'm your host, Cam Stewart, and we are in the thick of it. I know I keep saying it's March, but it is March. Lady Bears out of the Big 12 tournament in the second round that they played, I guess. The Baylor men's team heads to Kansas City this week with a double bye and the 3 seed in the Big 12 tournament. And there were awards announced last night, and Baylor is well represented for the Big 12 Men's Basketball Awards. And I talked about in the cold open there that both basketball teams lost something this weekend, not just a game. It's something they both had last week that is key to winning in the NCAA tournament that both teams had and they no longer have. It's pretty simple. It's momentum. I thought both teams were heading very firmly in the right direction heading into that last week of the season. And to be totally honest with you, most of the time, I don't care all that much about the Big 12 tournament. And I probably won't care that much about how the men do there this week. But they lost a big game to end the regular season at Tech, and some old ugly skeletons in the closet came back to play. But for the women, I did take the Big 12 tournament a little more seriously because I thought it could benefit them a lot more, both on the eye test and actually on paper, I guess, in the statistics. And both teams bow out on Saturday. They both lose. But starting with the men, that was no bueno, man. That was no fun. Saturday game in Lubbock, when they have something to play for, it's typically not that fun. And I will say this, with going into that game, and I'm guessing the players did not treat it like this. Going into that game, Baylor really didn't have a lot to play for. They had locked up the 3 seed with other losses going on around them, specifically that Kansas loss. And they already had the double bye. It was just a way to add a quad 1 win. It was just like, hey, it doesn't matter much if we lose, but if we go out there and win, it's nice for our resume. And for Tech, they had not locked up the double bye. They needed a win. It was their senior day. They needed to get another, not needed, but they would do greatly with another quad 1 win. And they played like they needed it. And that's what we saw in that game. And so I say that to say not of an excuse of like, who cares? The game didn't mean anything for Baylor. Kind of the opposite of that, actually, because I thought there's not much Baylor can do in this game to like really rile us up, to really make us frustrated. And I had said it controversially so on the postgame show. If they lost by 15 and weren't really in it, Tech gets a hot shooting start and Baylor never comes back, then that's one thing. To me, that's just kind of a wash. Oh, well, flush it down the toilet. We'll do our one game in KC and then get on to the real games that matter. Instead, they fell behind again, something that has been a trend for them. They came all the way back. They took a lead for the blink of an eye, and then they absolutely crumbled down the stretch. They let Tech right back in the game. They did not show the killer instinct that they have the last couple of games when they've been coming back, and it showed. Tech did not look back, and I said it in the post game, but it's tough for a team to play poorly enough that they fall down by 16 points, come all the way back to take the lead, and then somehow play worse down the stretch than they did in that stretch when they fell down by 16 points. But Baylor did it on Saturday. And that was really frustrating. And I think Scott Drew put it into words in his postgame, kind of what we were all thinking. He was not mincing words, and he was not making excuses.
Pop made a big three to take that lead back, but I thought Mac did a good job calling some good plays. They had some good looks, and they made them, and then they made some tough ones. And when you get on a run, you get the crowd going. That's tough, especially when you exert that energy to come back. But again, Tech was tougher than us from the tip. So as a coach, I didn't have our guys prepared to play. That's on me. Now we get a couple days practice, get to the Big 12 tournament, and hopefully we can learn from this so we're better prepared come Big 12 tournament, because, I mean, it should be a war like every Big 12 game is.
Tech was tougher than us from the tip. I didn't have our guys prepared to play. That's absolutely what it looked like on screen. For those watching on TV, for those of you in Lubbock, it probably looked like that too. And Scott Drew confirmed it after the game. Now, this is no attack on Scott Drew. Trust me. It's not like Dave Aranda saying it. But it was obvious, and that's the second time in a couple of weeks here that they've had big road games that they just weren't ready to play. The other one being that BYU game. That was a road trip. They had a nice but not hugely emotional victory at West Virginia, and then they got bullied in Provo. This one, they are coming off an emotional victory, 2 emotional victories, have plenty of time to kind of come back down to earth, and then get humbled and bullied by Tech. And it was the same story. Baylor did not have a single offensive rebound in the first half. That is something they are supposed to be good at. Now, they're in the 220s in the country of offensive rebound percentage, but they're second in the Big 12 in rebounding margin. Okay, so that is still a strength for them. And they did not have a single offensive rebound in the first half. Scott said after the game, I don't know the last time we didn't have an offensive rebound in a half, if ever. Because that is supposed to be one of the breads and butters of this team. And poof, it was not there. Now they come back and get 7 in the second half, but it's not enough. It's not enough to win the game. And what it is a microcosm of is the fact that Baylor did not take any kind of advantage in the paint, which is where they beat the crap out of Tech last time. They were plus 16 in the paint. Missi had drawn 7 fouls in that game. They were plus 11 in the rebounding department in that home matchup against Tech because Warren Washington was out. And you look at the numbers from Saturday and you must say, well, Warren Washington must have played this time. He didn't. He was still out. And this time, Baylor got out-rebounded by 11 after being plus 12 last time. They are minus 11 in this game. Points in the paint, not the same. Baylor still wins it, but wins it by 2. It was completely different. And Yves Missi is not the 17-7 that he gave you last time. He's 7-2. Your 2 centers combined for 11 points and 6 rebounds. That's what Jalen Bridges was like averaging as a freshman. By the way, Jalen Bridges didn't get a lot of shots up in this game either. That is full stop. Rebounding. And it was a toughness issue against BYU when they couldn't rebound against them, and it was a toughness issue Saturday against Tech. Tech was absolutely the tougher team. And I'm thankful that Baylor does not play another true road game this season. Now, they could well play Kansas in the Big 12 tournament quarterfinals, which will be a road game in Kansas City. But I'm hoping that is part of it, that the last 2 hostile environments they've played in, they looked like they wanted no part of the game for most of it. Because that looked like a disinterested team in the first half, and they got punished for it. They got pushed around for it, and that is something that is absolutely going to need to change, like right now. Today's episode of Locked On Baylor is brought to you by Nissan. This is how you are going to get to the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City, okay? Because you're looking for that next adventure around the corner. That's it. Get out there and go. So it's not as much of a road game against Kansas, and the Nissan will get you there. How about something like the Nissan Rogue? Okay. It's perfect for city drives and great escapes. That's both those things that you'll do headed to Kansas City. It's got class exclusive Google built in, is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. So gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store, all built right in. It's the perfect midsize crossover. Or maybe you're looking for the Pathfinder. Has room up to 8 with expansive cargo capacity. Or maybe the Nissan Armada, which is going to change what you think and what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first class, luxury, and style. So tow bigger and explore further with that 2024 Armada. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Pathfinder, or the Armada for a spin and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Women's basketball didn't do much better on Saturday. Baylor let a game slip through their hands. So did the women's team in a much more conventional way. They didn't need a big comeback, but they had a 6-point lead with what? A couple minutes left? 3 minutes left. It was 61-55 Baylor. They lost the game 67-62. Do the math on that one. All right, fine. I'll do it for you. Cyclones end the game on a 12-1 run in the last 3:10. 8-0 in the last minute and a half. 8-0. Whew. Baylor, it gets much worse. 0 for their last 9 from the floor. 1 of their last 19 and 3 for 24 from the field in the fourth quarter. That is a choke. That is a grade A choke. You just urinated that one away. I mean, it was right there for the taking. And this would have been a big victory for Baylor against a team they lost to up in Ames, one that isn't ranked higher than them, but is seeded higher than them and is a good basketball team. And they just let that one completely slip. Baylor extending on that was just 12 of 42 for the entire second half, meaning they thought they shot 33% in the third quarter. So none of it great. In fact, they took 42 shots in the second half and shot 29%. Iowa State shot 50% because they only needed 20 shots. Ugh. This was not a good performance to look back on. Baylor had 25 more shots than Iowa State did, 25, and shot 16% worse at 31% and lost the game. They turned Iowa State over. How many times? 22 times. As opposed to Baylor's 8. To me, that was the big issue for Baylor going into this tournament was the turnovers. They were still loose with the ball. That was something they were still slow to correct. They did really well protecting the ball. They turned Iowa State over 22 times and had, 25 points off turnovers, 25-5 in that category. Plus 14 in the turnover battle, plus 20 in points off turnovers, and they lost the game. How? How do you lose that game? Oh, man. You kept them from running. They had no fast break points. Oh, man. And it was pretty even in terms of lead time, both in the 18-minute mark. 16 more seconds of lead time for Iowa State. That just can't happen. That just can't happen. Another good game from Audie Crooks, but not one that absolutely lit you up. 23 points, she's going to get that. Only 6 rebounds and 7 turnovers all by herself. Again, if I'm giving you those numbers, you're like, great, Baylor's moving on. They're not. And there goes a shot at hosting in what I thought would be the Foster Pavilion, but I'm seeing some people saying the Farrell Center. So I don't know the rules on that. Sorry. I thought was a golden opportunity to face, with the momentum that you had coming into this tournament, facing a team that is at your level or maybe better than you, slightly better than you. You face them to get to the semifinals, and it's frustrating, man. That is really frustrating. And I mean, you could just tell how quiet it was going. Nicki Collen mentioned this after the game, but Bella Fauntleroy starts 3 for 3 from 3 and shoots 3 for 10. Like the shots just stopped going in. And some of that were just shots not going in and a luck thing, but they did not have great looks. I don't think they ran the offense that well in the second half. But Nicki talked about some more things after the game, including also how she feels about this team going forward.
We've got a lot of things to fix, but our challenge is like, you can't go 3 for 24 against an elite team. Like Iowa State's an elite team. Like they've, and they both of us were playing well coming into this tournament. And so, like they know their identity. They know they're going to play through crooks, and they're really good at it, And so, to me, am I confident in my team? Absolutely. Like, if you'd have told me Andrews would get as many open looks down the stretch as she got and she would miss them all, other than, the deep heave, which I'm sure, on the other sideline, Bill's going, really? Like, we played great defense for 29 seconds and they hit a 30-footer. But sometimes you got to be lucky. And, maybe that made up for all those wide open jump shots she had in the lane that she just didn't finish that she usually does. And so, yeah, I'm really confident with my team. I told them, though, like, we now have a week before the NCAA is announced where we don't know our opponent. And if they're not motivated to get in the gym, they never will be in their life.
Like Scott Drew, I'm glad that she didn't mince her words there. She didn't throw anyone under the bus, but she was very stern in saying you can't go 3 for 24 against an elite team and expect to win. You can't do it. Can't do it. And I liked the positive spin she took on it at the end. She said, I'm confident in my team. And I love this quote. If they aren't motivated to get in the gym this week, they never will be. I don't know if that's, if that was a problem for this team at some point in this year, but she was very clear in that. If you're not ready to come out to play, don't come on board because we're headed forward. And I think this team would benefit greatly from taking Nicki's chip and the attitude that she kind of has and taking it with them. And that's something that I think people don't necessarily appreciate enough from Coach Nicki, because she doesn't have the overt intensity and attitude that Kim Mulkey had there on the sidelines. But clearly she has that. And I think it would behoove her team greatly to take that with them, because they're going to be going in someone else's gym with the thought that, man, this could have been us. This could have been our gym. And the great thing about it is they'll have a good shot at somebody on their home court. So we have seen this team grow up in the last few weeks. In fact, I thought if the regular season was a week longer, I would feel much more confident in this team and the direction that they were going in. But you've seen people stepping up still. The mix of the lineup, I think the Dre Edwards off the bench thing is working for this team. She had 17 off the bench against Iowa State and led all scorers. She's the leading scorer for the team on the year. And I think that is giving them a good burst and a lot of confidence. But after the knockout third quarter that they had against Iowa State, to have it completely flipped on them in the fourth is disheartening. But we're going to talk later on this week about how we feel about this team going into the tournament. And we're not going to find out where they're going until next weekend. So it really is kind of a wait and see game for them. Today's episode of Locked On Baylor is also brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And now is the perfect time to get involved because the games are coming thick and fast in the NBA, and the games are getting bigger in the NBA. What teams don't want to be, play-in teams going into the playoffs? And it's also great because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. So bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with those quick bets, the same game parlays, the exclusive props, all those and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to shoot your shot. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. LOCKEDON. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. It's also postseason time in terms of awards. And the men's basketball announced their Big 12 awards last night, and Baylor was well represented. And not bearing the league, going to start with the biggest one. Jacoby Walter was named the Big 12 Freshman of the Year. Second straight year that a Baylor Bear has won that award. Keontae George in 23, Jacoby Walter in 24. Both North Texas kids coming in to play for the best program in Texas and getting rewarded for it, at least individually. Jacoby is just under 15 points a game this year, which leads all freshmen in the conference in that category. So very well deserved for Jacoby. I thought he's gotten some unnecessary stick this year, to be honest with you. He did have a bit of a slump, but I think we need to all keep in mind that he is a freshman. He is 18, 19 years old, and he's playing in the best conference in all of college basketball. So he wins preseason freshman of the year, postseason freshman of the year, just like Keontae George did. So he joins also Quincy Miller had won Big 12 Freshman of the Year for Baylor as well. So congratulations to him. I mean, that's really well deserved. Again, I bring up that point of that slump because I thought he got some unnecessary hate from it, and he has bounced back really nicely. And he has had games where he is hunting his shot. He is the best scorer on the court for Baylor, and they're also winning games, which that last part is key because we do see sometimes where scorers will worry about getting theirs, and you'll look at the box score and you'll say, wow, they really did a lot. But you'll watch the game and you'll say, well, they were too selfish. They took bad shots. They took their team out of their offense, and they didn't win the games down the stretch. But Jacoby Walter turned it back on, and they also won games down the stretch. And I'm telling you, he has looked every bit an NBA player the last couple of weeks. 3-and-D guy, sure, but he has absolutely looked like that with the shots he was making, similar to the stretch that Jeremy Sohan had 2 years ago in the last month or so of the season, where he just became a very versatile player, not just an agitator, not just a rebounder, looked like a guy who was going to be playing in the NBA the next year. Jacoby Walter is showing that. I thought either way, you were going to have the Big 12 Freshman of the Year represented by Baylor, because if it wasn't Jacoby, it had to be Yves Missi. And I'm sure that went back and forth at times this year. I honestly, it's so close that I wouldn't have been upset had either one of them won. I wouldn't have been like, well, shouldn't it have been this guy? Like, you could put up a really good case for Yves Missi too, but it's Jacoby's award. And Yves Missi did get Big 12 all defensive team, as well as an honorable mention for the Big 12 team. That one I'm a little curious about. Jawan Roberts, Manuel Willer, Kashawn Gilbert for Iowa State. I just feel like there's not three centers better in this league than Yves Missi. I don't think so. Certainly none of them. Of course, Hunter Dickinson was the first team center. None of them can do the things offensively that Yves Missi can. And Hunter Dickinson has better offensive numbers, of course, but Yves Missi is the most versatile center in the conference. So I was surprised to not see him make a team. He is on the all-defensive team. RayJ Dennis made the all-newcomer team, as well as the all-Big 12 second team. So no Bears in the first team, by the way, which I thought, that's weird. But then I look at the team and I'm like, okay, maybe I would have put this guy here or maybe this guy, but it's Jamal Shed, Taman Lipsey, Hunter Dickinson, Kevin McCullough, Dylan Dessou. That's pretty good. It's tough for me to really argue with that. Honestly, I thought Jalen Bridges is close. I really thought, and he didn't even make the second team. Jalen Bridges did make the third team. I said it a couple weeks ago. They'd be silly to not put him on a Big 12 team. I couldn't believe he had not made an all Big 12 team. He made the freshman team as a freshman at West Virginia, but had not made any of the 3 all Big 12 teams until now. Yes, I will argue he should be higher. I thought he had a better season than Emmanuel Miller, personally. But that's probably because I watched every minute that Jalen Bridges played. Jacoby Walter also making the third team as well. So 3 Baylor Bears on the Big 12 teams. Honorable mentions were Yves, Missi, and Langston Love, who I just feel for big time, because if he was healthy, he would have made an all Big 12 team proper, and he would have been the 6th man of the year, which went to Jackson Robinson of BYU. No question about it. No question about it. He would have made 6th man of the year. I mean, the numbers he was putting up before his injury were terrific. He led all Big 12 players in points for someone who didn't have a single start. And that was strategic, by the way. He's better than a lot of starting guards in this league, which is a good league. But he provided a perfect role for them off the bench. And I thought he showed some promise on Saturday. Ups and downs, peaks and valleys in that game, but glad to have him getting some reps before the tournament. So congratulations to all of our Bears who made the All Big 12 awards. Look, I mean, Saturday's game was an aberration, I hope, but it has nothing to do with what these guys have earned to be on this team. And RayJ Dennis, I think, gives Taman Lipsey a run for his money to be on that first team, to be totally honest with you. But he gets the second. Again, Jalen Bridges, Jacoby Walter in the third, Langston Love and Yves Missi, honorable mentioned. Tell me, do you guys think they should have made all Big 12 teams? Langston Love, Yves Missi. Should anyone have been higher? Were you with me that Jalen Bridges should have been higher? Potentially RayJ Dennis should have been higher. Drop that down in the comments below and let me know what you thought about Saturday's game. Am I overreacting to it? Or is this the sign that they're going to go out in the round of 32 again? Probably not, but we'll talk about that this week. And how do you feel about the women's team momentum going into the tournament? This is, I mean, quite literally put up or shut up time. You can't lose from here on out. I don't know about this women's team. I loved the progress they were making, but it's time to put it all together here in the next couple weeks. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow with your favorite show. Be sure to like and subscribe. Get involved down in the comments below. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. This is Locked On Baylor.